Welcome back, guys, to the Musings Maverick channel. Maverick here, and right now we're going to be watching Steins Gate 0, episode 20. So, we are nearing the end of Steins Gate 0 here, probably in the end laps, I guess you could say. I believe this series goes to episode 23, so 4 episodes left, right? And we do see Okabe going back to his, the normal self, the original Okabe that we know and love, and getting motivated to do some time traveling to save the world, right? Or more specifically, to save, Mayuri and Kurisu. But anyways, at the end of last episode, he did travel back to the past again, and I had some theories as to what he could actually do to eventually bring the series back to the original episode 23, right? More specifically, I feel like he might be using the D-mail to just, or at least finding a way that will eventually allow him to send his D-mail to his past self, which would tell him about the Steins Gate timeline and whatnot, which I feel like maybe might not have been from the future and might have been this Okabe himself. Or, at the very end of last episode, we saw that he used a time leap machine to actually go back a little bit further back than he originally did. Perhaps he's able to go all the way back using that kind of method. That's also a possibility. Although there was some very disturbing imagery at the very end of last episode as well, like something it looked like glass breaking or whatnot. So I don't know, man, we could be going with some completely wacky stuff for this episode, so let's just jump into it and find out. All right, let's begin in 3, 2, 1, play. No, he's right. Oh, there what? Hey, our crew is here. But Mahu is here as well. What? Oh. His imagination. What? Huh? What the hell happened? Looks like we're not having an opening for this episode. What? Time stopped? Question mark? Okay, I have no idea what's happening right now. 65536, and that's actually significant in that's so familiar. I can't remember. What was that? The amount of seconds in a day or something? Yeah. I mean, it's not significant as in it's important to the story. I'm just saying that it's a recognizable number. What the hell is going on? What? What? Did he age or something? Wait, is he in the future instead? But He accidentally leaped into the future? No, yeah, considering this world definitely looks like the future. But why was he laying on a hospital bed? That makes no damn sense. What? I mean, you're pretty obviously in the future, dude. Alright, and who's this? Suzuha? Yep. What happened here? What? So what, was he in a coma or something? Well, it's good to know that at least Daru was still the same as ever. Hey, he got thinner. Twenty, 30 something, right? Yeah. What?
シンは動かなかった。何が原因だったかそうしなかった。
Okay.
あの時間に戻るための48時間のリミットをタイムマシン動乱の時マユシが自分たちタイムマシンを作る。それがこのバルキューレだ。けれどそれは世界との戦いの始まりでもある。タイムマシンを欲しがったから。それに一番近いのがマキセ・クリスの理論を受け継いだ岡部倫太郎とその世界中から狙われる立場になった。25年のあの日、誰まずいことになった。
Huh?
何があったん？マジ？やばいじゃん。すぐこっちへ。ダメだ。行かない。励まして。感謝する。必ず完成くれ。タイムマシンを。オカリン？あとは任せる。オカリン！プラット4の点を受けて、さんたちが出しに僕らが見つけ度重なる拷問と実験によってオカリンの脳すでに死んだも同然の状態だった。
Okay, so coma.
心が死んでいた。体が治った。オカリンの意識は全く戻らなかった。でも体は生きていたんだ。だったらなんで死んだなんて。
And more to the point, why was he in that sort of hospital world? Like, who was looking over him?
事実を一部の人間の手。待ってよ。どうして今に。
And where were his caretakers?
世界いうこと。信用記憶上書きしたんだ。そうだ。古い PC の中にあったのを最近になってサルベージして。もちろんうまくいったは賭けだったけど。やっぱ納得いかない。世界だけじゃなくて私まで騙してたなんて。
Ah, okay.
今はまだ頭の整理がつかないだろうし。
And that's how he gets the deceiving the world idea?
オカリンが目覚めたことを伝えてくるさ。ああ、オカリンが倒れて11年間待ち続けてくれていたラボメンたちね。
Rinascimento.
では異常なしに。大丈夫です。間違い。
Warrior.
心して聞いて。オカリンが目を覚ました。ルカシとフェイリスタン。二人ともオカリンをずっと世話してくれていたのね。ちょっと待って。到達に行って。予定はなかったはずだ。え？はずだ。確かに。だって。遅く役が。
Mm. I'm more interested to know have they actually finished the time machine. I'm a samurai. Look, I mean, it's cool and all, right? But still, this is ridiculous. Dead. No, no, not. I thought she was gonna get sniped or something. Well, come here, you're being really a burden right now. Damn. I mean, it looks cool as heck, but oh yeah. How to use a sword. Look, if I'm supposed to actually I don't know. I'm sorry. I can't get into this at all in terms of you know the sadness and emotions and whatnot. Right. More importantly, have you guys finished the time machine yet? Man, he looks slick. Huh? Huh. Was that what happened? But how are you going to get back past the 48-hour limit? Well, I'll try to figure it out after this ending part. See you guys in a second. Okay, this episode was quite the mixed bag for me. Right off the bat, I'll say that I did like the twist in using the time leap machine, and I did like how we were able to have finally an entire episode based on in the future of the storyline. Because even though the future has always been referenced and we've always seen some scenes from it, we've never had an episode that actually was completely in the future years, right? So I did like that. With that said, however, some of the concepts, some of the things that they did this episode, I'm really not feeling it, right? And perhaps probably the most obvious one would be Ruka, both in regards to his characterization, what he did at the end, his actions, and of course his death, right? So, don't get me wrong, it's cool that they made him into a samurai and all that, right? And, he had some pretty badass poses and whatnot. It's just that it's it's so over the top dramatic, right? Literally leaping down from like how many stories high to do a video game kind of move. I mean, I guess it was adapted from a video game, right? But generally we haven't had people completely defy physics in the Steins Gate series, barring the episodes a few episodes back when Suzuha was able to take on like 20 armed men with automatic rifles all by herself out in the open, right? Beyond that, it's facing some of the same problems here, that it's just over the top and makes it to the point of being ridiculous, right? Which I guess it's entertaining in its own way, but at the same time, it's like, what the hell are you doing, man? If they really wanted to integrate his tendency to use his sword, especially since this does have a sort of connection between Ruka and Okabe. He's the one who taught him, or told him to keep on practicing his swordsmanship and whatnot. I would have been completely fine if they simply, included it in as just a reference. Like maybe in a scene where, when he was literally down his last bullet or something, he took out his samurai sword and sliced off the head of one of the last remaining soldiers, right? I feel like if they did that kind of scene, it would still be badass, it'd still be cool as hell, we'd still get this reference, and it wouldn't be so over the top ridiculous, right? So honestly, because they already made the scene that way, at the very end there with Ruka dying, I really, to me it just was an extension of the ridiculousness that I just saw, right? And especially considering that this series is already spoiled in a sense, right? Steins Gate Zero is already spoiled because we already know the ending to this. I don't know. It's just really hard for me to conjure up any emotions or feel any sympathy for that scene. I'll be entirely honest here. That scene was more ridiculous and funny to me than it was sad or whatnot. So yeah, and just goes to show that it does have the flow of a story and the logicalness of the things that transpire do have an impact on other stuff as well. But with that said, though, in universe, I don't quite buy the fact that they just because they've seen so much death and whatnot, so they're relatively unfazed by Ruka's death. I feel like there's still going to be a difference between your other people and these who were literally together for such a long time. They're all lab members and whatnot, the closest of closest comrades. But that's I guess a moot point, right? So let's talk a little bit about the actual mechanism within this episode. So because initially I thought that what happened was they somehow found a way to, it was a bug in the system, they broke the limit, and they got past the 40-hour restriction, but Okabe time leaped into the future instead. So that's not actually what happened. The time leap actually failed. It's just that there was a copy of his brain that was transferred to the time leap machine back when the time leap failed, right? And why it failed, I don't know if that's actually significant or not. It just failed, right? And so but that wasn't a case. It wasn't a case where he time leaped into the future. It's just that it failed. They continued to live out that timeline, but then there was a gap where Okabe died, I guess you could say, in 2025, and now he's been revived using memories from 2011 prior, right? So I did get that in the end there, but there's a few problems with this as well, right? So one thing that I guess kind of is a nitpick, but kind of bothers me a lot actually, is if he really was lying there for 11 years, there's no way that he could have gotten up, right? There's no way he could, even with the struggles that was being depicted here, still absolutely no way he was able to walk or climb, or even in this case we did see him run, right? That's entirely impossible. Your muscles would completely atrophy away in 11 years. He's not going anywhere without a wheelchair and months of rehab, right? So again, that's not really important. It's just something that kind of bothers me in terms of the realism of the situation, right? Like again, this series itself it's not based on reality, right? It deals with time travel and whatnot, but still there is a certain element of realism that you need to keep, and just concentrate the unrealistic stuff into a relatively confined package, right? Stuff such as this, and stuff such as Ruka going around slash all samurai and gung-ho like, just kind of brings me out of it. So that's one thing. The other more, the other thing that I like to take from this is because Okabe didn't actually time leap into the future. I don't quite get what he's saying at the end of this episode, where he's asking about the time leap machine, and he's going to retry to continue to continue his efforts in finding the steinsgate timeline, right, or the correct timeline here, because the time leap machine still has only 48 hours. You can still only go forward or backwards 48 hours. Or sorry, you can't go forward. You can only go backwards 48 hours. Well, actually, can you go forward? I don't know. That's not important, right? But the point is that how exactly is he going to go back to the time that he needed to, right? He needs to use either the D-mail or the time machine to finish that. And considering that this is supposedly about the time it is finished, that's what I think would be utilized instead. I know he made this big point of having this cliffhanger or having this really cool, this really cool preview or declaration at the end of this episode, but I kind of feel like the time leap machine is not the appropriate tool for this situation. Unless he's trying to save Ruka first, right? It's also possible that that's what he's going to do first, and then they're going to, righting things wrong here, and then they're going to then try to figure out how exactly to change the past, right? Which is possible, and if it does turn out to be that kind of sequence, then kudos to them. But as it is right now, I don't really see how the time leap machine is relevant to him trying to change the past here. Beyond this, another question that I have, which honestly already you could say was a problem even in the original time series, is why was there no timeline shift when we literally got to this point in this timeline, right? Because remember, if this is still the same timeline, then Suzuha and Kaguri traveled from the future to the past, right? But now Okabe has gone to the future, and that's clearly not the case. It's already a different kind of future in place here. So things have already changed already. Why hasn't the timeline changed, right? Is it a case where, I had this discussion before, maybe reading Steiner is not as reliable as we perceive it to be, or, something's fishy here, right? So that's another thing that came to my notice looking at this episode. So a lot of nitpicks, and still, a lot of things a lot of questions I have in regards to this entire time leap aspect and whatnot. I do feel like sometimes, though, I should probably not be looking into these situations with that critical of an angle, and just instead let it be. It'll probably heighten my enjoyment of the series instead, since, time travel itself is a very finicky subject, and honestly, no matter what you're doing, you're going to find some holes in the entire argument, right? People that are much smarter than me, and probably much smarter than those doing the anime one, have been trying to figure this out already, and to no avail, right? So probably, I should probably cut them some slack in regards to this, but still, I like to mention this anyway. And another thing that I did like from this episode is that Okabe finally realizes the short-sightedness of trying to hold on to the beta timeline here, right? Once you get to 2025, once you get to 2036, this world is still going to be hell. The people that you do care for are still going to die, and yada yada yada. And I mentioned this before, right? It is sort of a hypocrisy on Okabe's part. I've always thought the easiest way, and something that really someone close to him should have tried to postulate to him already, is ask him what if Mayuri literally died in, say, 2020, right? 9 years after the events that transpired there, or 10 years after. Would Okabe then be more open to searching for a different timeline? Question mark. Because I honestly think so. If that is one of his priorities in keeping Marguerite alive and allowing her to live a good life, it just doesn't make it just doesn't make sense even without asking that question, right? If you know that Mayuri, like, even if you say, okay, it's okay, Mayuri lived on, but her life is going to be a living hell starting from 2025, is that really the best, the best course of action, right? So, and yeah, I get it. He just feels very helpless and all that, but I'm just saying that I feel like, this something like this, for him to question whether pursuing this path was the correct way, if he really wanted to keep Mayuri at keep Mayuri's life and allow her to live a good life, I feel like that sort of excuse had fallen apart like long ago if someone just had the guts to call him out on it. So at least he realized it here, right? Better late than never. We're 3 episodes away from the end of this series. So yeah, I'm kind of, I guess maybe I was a little bit too negative in regards to all this stuff, but like I said, I did like the concept of it. I didn't really like a lot of the things that were mentioned within this episode. The way that the episode is trying to structure itself, or the way that the story is trying to structure itself, it's just not as tight and not as complete as it could be, right? But yeah, anyways, that's my review of Steins Gate Zero episode 20. Like I said, next episode, either Okabe is going to be refuted and they're going to go the D-Mail or Time Machine route, or he's going to use the Timely Machine to try to save Ruka, right? Either way, he's still missing some catalysts in order for him to finally discover the method of, quote-unquote, deceiving the world, right? And we have 3 episodes left, so it's entirely possible that we're going to go on some detours to do some different things, not necessarily related with changing the timeline back in 2010, right? So, we'll see how things go. Alright, I'll see you guys next week as well. Until then, bye-bye.